Alright everyone, there is a deep state propaganda campaign going on right now involving the US government, essentially, what you would call the establishment, the swamp. You know, the people that the left used to hate back in the late 60s, early 70s, the ones that they love now and they consider responsible for taking care of them like a bunch of little whining baby toddlers or something. That group is now trying to convince you that literally every anti-Hillary Clinton image ever created was the result of a Russian op. I disagree. I don't think that that's the case. I think that a lot of those images were predominantly promulgated in a grassroots manner by people who were right here in the United States and didn't like Clinton. Also, when I look at the evidence, I see no compelling reason to believe that the Russians would have wanted Trump to be the one elected. I see more evidence they would want Hillary Clinton to be the one elected. Like, oh yeah, the fact that she's getting tens of millions from the Russian energy czars, you know, years ago. She's leaning on Obama to pass a deal with Moscow to sell off 20% of the U.S. uranium stockpile to Russia for energy purposes at rock-bottom prices. The fact that she's getting money from countries that don't have terrible relations with Russia. Look, the Saudis are almost a neutral party in this world. They'll sell fuel oil to anyone as long as they're willing to pay them money. They'll take weapons from people. We sell them weapons. You think the Russians don't give them some good shit? Like they don't want to keep them from attacking the Iranians? Of course they do. They do it under the table, maybe, but it certainly happens. Ignorance of that fact, making the military world go round, so to speak, it doesn't mean it's not true. I'm sorry. But here we've got a situation in which the same people, they'll call you a conspiracy theorist if you say that the swamp would try to do anything wrong. If you say, well, yeah, there's collusion between a bunch of, like, neocon Republicans and fucking neoliberal Democrats to destroy our country, basically. Like, not directly, but the policies that they put forth are basically, they're corporatist, and they're stupid, and they grow bureaucracy, and they're abusive. So it destroys the fabric of our nation in a default manner. If you claim that as a result of political corruption that could happen, you're a conspiracy theorist, you're wearing a tinfoil hat, you're a Russian agent. But for them to claim, hey, the election was totally destroyed by the Russians, they managed to hack the election, they influenced millions of people. You see the total, like, what was it, 100 million people seeing Facebook ads. And they had tens of thousands of Twitter bots. Oh my God, we've never seen something like this before. It's monumental. Everybody is a Russian, basically. Everything you saw during the election was a Russian farce. That claim somehow I'm supposed to believe. I'm supposed to believe that a state considerably weaker in the sense of its finances, in the sense of most things, really, managed to overthrow the U.S. election despite even the Democrats themselves. Clinton, one of the candidates who now rambles about this. Obama, who was president at the time, saying, nope, the election can't be hacked, can't be influenced, perfectly ironclad, nothing anyone can do to stop it from being totally fair. So you said that when you thought Clinton would win because you were dumb. And as soon as she lost, you said, oh shit, the dude we assumed would lose, who we assumed was fucking clueless, oh, he actually managed to win. Let's blame the Russians. See, they had already blamed the Russians for the DNC leaks. They thought at the time, the DNC leaks occur. Now, the DNC leaks to WikiLeaks involve somebody within the DNC. It did not involve Russian hackers. Zero evidence was offered. It was stated openly by Donna Brazil and others thereafter, like months later, oh yeah, we're not really sure. That was just, our hunch was it was Russian hackers. By the way, we're not letting you look at our servers because, of course, we know different. We know that it was from within the DNC. Was his name Seth Rich? Who fucking cares? It doesn't even matter. It was someone within the DNC, or they would have shown us proof it was Russian hackers by now. They would have shown us proof. Look, they're showing us everything else is Russia. Why wouldn't they give us evidence that the DNC leaks were Russian op? Because they don't want to put that out there for people to say, well, it's not true. Because it's knowingly, they don't have evidence of it. In all seriousness, Obama 08 was their password on all of those emails, and it was just easily hacked by any disgruntled low-level employee who has said, well, I liked Bernie, and now I've got evidence that Bernie's been shafted, so I'm just going to dump these emails to Julian over there. They blamed Russia for this because they didn't want people who were Democratic partisans to take the content as seriously. They wanted it to be, at first they tried to disclaim that it was even true. They said, well, these documents aren't even real. Then they said, of course, oh, these documents were stolen. It was illegal. You just confirmed, Miss Brazil, that they were real then. You can't steal something that doesn't exist, now can you? You could fabricate it, but you can't steal it from a DNC server because if it's not real, well then I guess it's not there. Too bad. You know, I wonder why she got forced out. Could it be because she accidentally confirmed that on CNN? Yeah, I think that's probably the reason that she wasn't kept on after her interim period, so to speak. So you got that. They've already blamed Russia to try to cover their ass. In order to cover their ass after a historic and spectacular electoral loss to someone they claimed could never possibly in a million years win the election, that every expert so-called speculated would never win, that they expected to be crushed underfoot after publishing for months and months grand maps showing the Democrats might win Texas, they'll take Arizona, Georgia is in play, and people like myself saying you're full of shit as a Christmas turkey, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. After all of that, they said, well, we'll cover our ass and just extend the Russia bullshit. Hey, Obama, we need your help doing this too. You need to come out and say, well, yeah, I was aware the Russians were trying to tamper, but I didn't say anything because I thought Hillary would win. We'll just play dumb. We'll play dumb on the American people, blame the Russians, and we'll be all set. Instead of owning up to the fact that we have no idea what we're doing. We got no strategy. What's their strategy been? Let me ask you this. Let me ask you something. To be fair, in truth. What's the Democratic Party done in the last year? What's the one thing that all of the Democrats have in common as having done? They've complained, blamed Russia, and spun a bunch of bullshit about how evil and bigoted Trump is. Have they put forth a policy proposal? No. No, Trump has, including policy proposals involving giving some of what the Democrats want to the Democrats, like on immigration. It's like, yeah, we can restore, this immigration program you love so much, but you have to give me some of what I want too. And then they say, of course, they won't do that. They would rather just do nothing. They'd rather be the next John Boehner party. I'm surprised that John Boehner hasn't registered as a Democrat at this point, considering the way they've been acting. I suppose he's still too endeared to McCain and some of the never-Trumpers within the GOP. That's all they've done. They've done absolutely nothing else. They've got no platform. Their leadership, Tom Perez, is basically a no-show. He doesn't do anything. He doesn't say anything. The last time he weighed in on anything was, hey, we didn't know about the Fusion GPS stuff. Nobody told me. I just found out a couple days ago. I'm just so inept. I don't even know what's going on within my own political party. I'm fucking stupid. That's what Tom Perez is hoping you'll believe. But then again, the Democrats have been doing that all along, haven't they? Playing stupid. They'd rather be seen as inept and bumbling. This is what W did. They're taking a leaf out of W's strategy book. It's better to be seen as dumb than evil. Instead of owning up to the fact that an insider within the Democratic Party leaked their emails to WikiLeaks, which, by the way, is also not a Russian op, and they used to love WikiLeaks back in the W era, back in the Iraq era. They never called them Russian agents then. They decided to blame Russia rather than owning up to the fact that they were so fucking corrupt that one of their own employees turned coat and dumped their shit to WikiLeaks. Podesta doesn't want to admit he's corrupt, so he doesn't want to admit that his emails were not grabbed by Russians, they were grabbed by some fucking staffer within the DNC. That's what this all boils down to. Everything subsequent to that, all of the legacy media bullcrap, I guarantee you that this is being coordinated with the DNC. We'll probably find evidence of it in the future. Why wouldn't I suggest that? Clinton camp has, there are emails showing the Clinton camp and the DNC were talking to MSNBC and CNN during the election. Some of the stuff that they spewed out about WikiLeaks was so absolutely, totally, objectively, legally false. Like, oh, you can't read the WikiLeaks releases, it's illegal to do so. It was so obviously false. Why wouldn't I speculate that they're still working with the legacy media, including the polling firms? Why should I believe their numbers? They were 8 points off on average, I think it was, during the election. 8 fucking points. Oh, Trump is down by 7. No, he's actually up by a point in this state, you moron. Your methodology sucks. Half of you are just inept, and most of you are corrupt. Therein lies the problem. How can I trust anything that you say? And when they are simultaneously launching constant ideological attacks, the Right Wing Watch, New York Times, all these groups, on the independent, non-legacy media, it gives me even more reason to suspect that something fishy is going on. Because it sounds like they're just trying to discredit as many people as possible, so that their own fan base will never believe how fucking corrupt they are. Because they don't want the Democratic lay people especially the younger Democrats, trust me, to realize that some staffer in the DNC who had read through a handful of emails they had perfect access to because they were an employee there, realized what was happening between the Clinton campaign and the DNC, between the Clinton camp and the legacy media, and what was being done to Bernie Sanders, and they were a progressive working for the DNC, and they decided to turn coat. Thereafter, every other Russia excuse is just that, the snowball effect. The lie is getting bigger and bigger, and there are people who believe it. Thankfully, though, they just had a poll out. Only 25% of the U.S. public actually believes Trump colluded with the Russians. Now, the number is probably a lot higher when you're talking about, oh, the Russians interfered in the election. Guess what? I don't think they did. I think most of this bullshit is just that. It's bullshit. Zuckerberg lying through his teeth when he says, yeah, those Facebook ads may have swung a state or two. No, they didn't. $10,000 in Facebook ads swung a state. No, it didn't. It probably changed 10 people's votes. When you're talking about all that, they had a report. Hundreds of millions of impressions through the election from some thousands of Russian bot accounts. So, hundreds of thousands of impressions. I get hundreds of millions. I get hundreds of thousands of impressions every 24 hours. This doesn't mean that I'm changing anyone's political opinion. Mostly, I'm just talking to the choir. 90% of the people that interacted with that content already agreed with it. A large proportion weren't even probably in the United States, so they weren't voting. You think that a single person, a single Clinton voter who actually cared enough to be a diehard Clinton supporter changed their vote to Trump because of what some Russian bot account posted? And by the way, it's normal for states to have propaganda accounts. Every other state does too. China has them. So, every other state does. Most of those other states that would run bots like the UK, France, Germany, they're run by people who liked Clinton. So where's the investigation into those bot accounts making memes about how bad Trump is? I want to see an investigation of this. I bet you'll find the amount of propaganda is roughly equal. But you're going to lie by omission, and there's the big secret. It's not a lie when they say that a bunch of Russian bots made propaganda. Some of it was probably pro-Trump. I'm willing to admit that, although I don't think it's to nearly the extent that they're claiming. But the lie by omission is they're not also going to tell you, hey, there were also a bunch of bot accounts from these other states that supported Clinton. They're not going to tell you that, but it's definitely true. If it happened from one state, it happened from many states. And if it happened for one candidate, it happened for many other candidates as well. Any state, looking at what Trump said and judging that it would be negative for their overall diplomatic and economic situation for him to be elected, made propaganda if they were fiscally able to do so and technically able on behalf of Hillary Rodham Clinton. Absolutely. Just like any state that thought it would be good for Trump to be elected for their fiscal position in the world, made propaganda if able to do so on behalf of Donald Trump. It's just the way the world works. The internet's an international marketplace of ideas. It's not just a U.S. firm. Hell, if you had a problem with this, why did Obama decide to say, oh, I can't have, the U.S. doesn't need to renew its license solely here. We're just going to let the whole world meddle with the internet. Well, then, if you thought that there was going to be Russian collusion with a major political, because by the time you did this was fairly late on. We're talking within a year of the election. I think the primaries had already begun, I think, at the time. Or at least we knew who some of the people would be. They had declared that they would campaign. If you had any inkling whatsoever that there was going to be any hacking, any collusion, any propaganda, which obviously, as the president, you know, happens by all states on a daily basis, including the U.S. We got 20,000 Facebook sock accounts just through the Air Force alone. That story broke 10 years ago. If you thought that, then why'd you give ICANN away? Wouldn't it be more beneficial to say, hey, yeah, we can block out these propaganda accounts legally, unilaterally. We don't even need to use the corporations because we control ICANN. Well, why didn't you decide to do that? Why'd you give the internet away, basically? Thank goodness all the major tech firms are still based in the United States. Like, we have much more of an impact than anyone else. Facebook is here, Twitter's here, YouTube is here. Fucking Crapple. Well, Crapple's a Chinese company, basically. They just pretend to be a U.S. firm. All these others, most of them are U.S. firms. Yeah, we got it made. Thank goodness. No thanks to people like Barack Obama. So this propaganda, which is what it is coming from the establishment. And what it's geared towards is getting you to say, oh, Russians this, Russians that, Red's under the bed. Well, guess what? I'm not taken in by your Red Scare. If this had been the 1950s, the majority of the population in the 50s and 60s thought commies were under their bed listening to them and trying to sabotage the US. There was always an attempt to sabotage things. It was never nearly as prevalent as they suggested. And the one real suggestion that was made by, hey, Hollywood has communists in it, there are commies in the government, which was actually significantly true, was ignored on the public stage. As soon as the claim was made, the Red Scare began breaking down because they're like, oh shit, well, you know, some policymakers who did infiltrate the government and are communists, if they get exposed, public trust will be lost. There's the problem. So, yeah, the Russians make propaganda online. So does China. So does Angela Merkel. The Germans make lots of propaganda. I can make propaganda online, too. It's very, very simple. You just make a meme. Look how fast Pepe spread. I'm surprised they haven't decided to say, well, Kek was a Russian agent all along. Kek was a Russian meme. If you are part of the cult of Kek, you are a communist agent or a Nazi. I'm not sure which line they'll end up going to. That's about all. Peace out.